Call the August 8th, 2022 Special School Board Meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Brian Wopat, would you please call the roll?
Jennifer Deek.
Here.
Gary Dunlop.
Here.
Chris Lau.
Excused.
Bridget Todd Robbins.
Here.
Brian Wopat here. Barb Wench.
Here.
With 5 of the 6 board members present, I declare a quorum. I note that the agenda has been posted, distributed, and sent to the local media. With this in mind, are there any changes to this agenda? I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as published.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, Bridget? All right, Brian has moved and Bridget has seconded to approve the agenda as published. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion to approve the agenda as published, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please signify by saying nay. The motion to approve the published agenda has passed. Okay, moving on to candidate interviews. I will begin by describing how this evening will proceed. The Board of Education currently has a vacancy due to the resignation of Rebecca Reber. As part of the board vacancy process, all candidates have submitted an application for the vacant board position. They have been shared with the board for consideration. Thank you for coming forward and applying to serve on the board. The next step is the candidate interview. I will moderate the proceedings. The board has a series of questions for candidates. Each candidate will be asked the same question and will respond in a rotating order. Candidates are allowed 2 minutes for opening comments, providing information about themselves and why they would like to serve on the board. Candidates will have 1 minute to answer subsequent questions and another 1 minute at the end of the question period for any necessary follow-up. The board clerk is responsible for managing the time clock and alerting you when your time is about to expire. So please end your response at that time. And what method are you using,
I will
Brian?
use the cards.
Okay. After the interview period, which will end by 6:30, the board will be able to ask follow-up questions of all candidates. The board will then vote using a written signed ballot. Voting will continue until one candidate receives the majority of votes. So because we have 5 board members present here tonight, one candidate must receive at least 3 votes. If you are selected, you will have 5 days to decide if you are willing to serve the remainder of the vacant term until April of 2023. The appointed candidate that decides to serve will be sworn in on August 15th, 2022 at our board workshop next Monday. So to begin tonight's proceedings, we will draw for the order of the candidates. Board Clerk Brian Wopat will call out the order of the names as they are drawn. The order will rotate with each question.
Josh Newman will start,
Okay?
then Nagy will follow.
Okay. So Stacy, I think you're going to have them move up here. Okay, we ask you to speak into the microphone as the special meeting is being recorded and live streamed on YouTube. Let's begin by having each candidate provide some information about themselves and why they would like to serve on the Holmen Board of Education. Candidates are provided 2 minutes for these opening comments. So Josh, we start with you.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity to be here again. I've been in this room a few times sharing my opinions and concerns or suggestions or whatever else. Don't really feel like I need to share a whole lot about myself as I've put myself out there for the last few months when we were running in April. and just discussed with my family again and my wife, and felt like I have some skills that I think could be an asset to the board, lead in my businesses, and just I think in the name of a good functioning board that has a diverse viewpoints that represent our community. Obviously, hard fought battle with Rebecca and Barb in the election this spring, and a lot of people, awesome turnout, a lot of engaged people, which was great. But obviously received a decent number of votes this spring, the third most amount after Barb and Rebecca. So I just think I could bring some good skills that could be a benefit to the board. That's why I'm here tonight.
Okay, thank you. Maggie?
Hello, everyone. Maggie Smith, she, her, hers. I was also recently here and feel like some of you have heard this before, but I'll repeat myself again. I am a mom to 3 humans, all of whom will be attending Evergreen this year. I am somewhat newer to Holmen, lived here just over a year, but I'm not new to working with the Holmen School District or with other school districts in La Crosse County and the Cooley region and statewide. I have over 11 years working on school district policy, programming, like Farm to School, Safe Routes to School, social emotional learning, part of the COVID response in a position at the local health department. And then most recently, for about the past 14 months, I've been the Adolescent Health Coordinator for the State of Wisconsin Department of Health Services. In that role, I work closely with construction, particularly on data and assessment related to the Youth Risk Behavior Survey and the school health profiles. I also work with school districts, tribal organizations, and community-based organizations around the state, all in the interest of adolescent well-being. I'm also a former school board member in the community where we lived before Holmen, a past president of a nonprofit in that same community that was focused on community well-being, and then most recently I've been part of the PTO at Evergreen, working on the accessible playground fundraiser. Super excited to see come to fruition. I'll leave it there. I am hoping to serve on the board because I believe that my skills and experience align with the district's mission, vision, and values. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Maggie. So Maggie, this first question will come back to you because we'll be rotating back and forth. And then I'll ask the first question, and then I'm going to have the board members here ask subsequent questions. So we'll move to Barb on the second question.
Hold on just a second. We have a problem with Maggie's microphone. It is.
Okay.
Is that better?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, excellent. So the first question, it is anticipated that the district will ask the voters to consider an operational referendum and a capital referendum to support facility needs this fall. First, are you in support of these referendums? Why or why not? And if so, what approach do you think the district should take to gain community support?
Yeah, it is really loud. Am I too loud?
You're
Maybe I'll just stay back. I am in support of both of the referendums being proposed. My why is, I guess, pretty straightforward. I think the needs have been outlined pretty clearly. And as far as methods and how that's shared with the community, I think the importance of communication can't be underscored enough. Being transparent with the process, outlining, I got quieter again, outlining the needs, reiterating what's going to happen, addressing any misinformation. I feel like communication related to referendum is key.
Okay, thank you. Josh?
Yeah, that's tough. Anytime you're asking people to pony up as taxpayers, and that hits every person, whether people are renting in our community or homeowners or whatever it is, it's all an expense that's going to get carried to those people. I think the need is glaringly loud. Holmen should be a community with our growth that we're leading in facilities. And, quite frankly, it's been, from the outside looking in, it appears that there's been major mismanagement of our buildings. The fact that we have a middle school that's 70 plus years old and 2 elementary schools that are in disrepair. I think we're sitting at a spot where it may be the only alternative to get we should be, I desire for Holmen to lead the way in those areas, and we are in a bad spot, right? So a referendum might be the only way to do it, and somehow winning public support and being transparent with the needs and the funds and where money's going to be going, and really showing that we've been efficient with the funds that we've already asked for is really key in conveying the need and winning people over.
Okay, thank you. And then Barb, we'll move on to you.
What do you see as the current strengths of the school district that should be maintained going forward? What do you see as the district's challenges?
Back to you.
Back to me, okay. I think without a doubt, Holmen has some of the most passionate people in the state. You know, in running for school board, I heard from a lot of people that were very passionately in favor of some ideas I had, and very passionately not, you know, in favor of some of the things that I thought were good ideas. I enjoy having those conversations. I had countless dialogues on Facebook Messenger, back and forth with people, and really started us off saying, hey, if we can agree to dialogue and come to the point where we say, you can be a reasonable human being and I can, and we may disagree on this, I'll have this conversation with you. And the bulk of those went really, really well, actually, hitting some middle ground. But we've got passionate people. I think what that's good for is when you have a lot of people that are very passionate, there's a lot more that we can agree on than we disagree. And so it's a matter of communicating that and pulling people together. But I think that is a huge strength for Holmen. People want to be engaged, and they have passion for our community, no question.
Can I ask that you repeat the question?
What do you see as the current strengths of the school district that should be maintained going forward? And what do you see as the district's challenges?
Sure. So for strengths, I would absolutely say the staff and the educators within the district, for sure. I would also call out, I think that there's innovation happening here. I think that Holmen, the school district of Holmen, is a leader in education. I know that when we considered where to relocate our family, the schools played a large part in that. And I think committing to remain a leader in a really quality district is important. I would also be remiss, I think, not to call out the nutrition program at the school district of Holmen. Having worked with school district nutrition programs for a long time, Holmen is quite literally called out all the time as being top of the game. I would also say both a strength and a challenge is the level of engagement around issues within the district right now. I think ultimately it is a strength, and that engaged families is what we want to see. We want to see people who care really deeply and who show up and want to affect change. I think other challenges are going to be the underfunding at a state level that's led to some of the concerns and the need for referendums.
All right, thank you.
All right, the third question, and we'll start with Maggie on this one. If chosen to represent the community on the board, what would your approach be to build positive relations between the community and the board? What ideas do you have to continue building positive interactions with the community?
Sure. So I think that one key takeaway from the past few years is the importance of in-person conversations. Being able to have a conversation with someone face-to-face often goes quite differently than it does through social media. And then I've mentioned it already, and I'll probably mention it again in my answers to these questions, but I think another one is the importance of accessible and easy to understand communication. I don't think that everyone in the public understands the processes that govern schools. I don't think that everyone understands how things work. And I think there's a need for communication about that and meeting people where they are, communicating where they already go, and not making it something that they have to dig through, understanding board minutes or things like that just to understand what's going on.
Thank you.
All great ideas, Maggie. Boy, I could go off on this one. Rebuilding trust amongst the board, and one thing I recommended before, I was obviously opposed to the fact that we took public participation out of the meetings, and I know there's some caveats to how you can still do that, but I know and heard from many people in Holmen that had submitted requests, or several, I shouldn't say many, that had submitted requests and were denied by the previous president to be able to share things. I think for sure that needs to be brought back, and there's ways to do that in a smart way that keeps control of the meetings and from a time standpoint also. So that's one thing for sure. One of the recommendations I made to the previous president was doing some sort of town hall Obviously, when things get heated and emotions are high, people do not converse well when emotions are out of control, right? You need to be logical, and that starts with the leadership coming from the board side. And so doing a town hall, whether that is health issues or that's a referendum issue, getting some dialogue back and forth done by a mediator would be a great way to build trust, I think.
Okay, Bridget, we'll come to you.
So if you are selected, what qualities do you bring as a board member to enhance the school district of Holmen? And we'll start with Josh.
I think I'm a fun guy. This isn't always like the most fun environment. There's a lot of serious things that need to be discussed. I don't take life too seriously because it's short. That's one of the principles of my business is we have fun. But I have skills in leading people. I've built successful businesses. I'm involved in other boards and know how to communicate with people that I disagree with and sit down and find common ground and build things up. I think if you tap into the right ways, it's easy to inspire people about things they care about. So I think above all, I know sitting here that my ideas don't align with the ideas of many of you that are sitting on the board now. But I don't think you're bad people because of that. I think that that's stuff we talk through, and together, if Gary and I come to the community and we agree on something, that says something to the community, right? And I believe that's possible. And so that's a skill I think that a lot of people have, but I think is very important for us to bring forward.
And I would call out experience working with a multitude of school districts, as I mentioned, both in policy and in programming, as well as in systems work around the state, seeing the issues that are happening here. Many of them are not unique. They're being experienced at some level across the state and across the country. I also think that I have firsthand seen the importance of quality school board policy and how it can affect a community, whether intentionally or unintentionally, and understand the importance for that. I will also share that I believe I have a really deep commitment to equity and clear communication. And I think those are things that are really easy to say and much harder to put into action. I think being committed to clear and accessible communication should be a responsibility of the government everywhere. And I think that equity is also something that needs to happen in action and not in word. It needs to be something that's considered in processes, in outcomes, and in resources.
Thank you. Gary, down to you, number 5.
Sometimes the board will make a decision that differs from your opinion. How do you plan to communicate that decision when asked questions in the community?
Is this to me first?
Yep, Maggie.
Okay. How would I plan to communicate that to the community? I think, again, conversation can be really helpful when people are fired up about things, particularly conversation that happens in person. I also think the importance of a diverse spectrum of opinions can't be called out enough. I think that if it was something that I disagreed with, I think that you can do that in a respectful way and you can state why you disagreed. And ultimately, you're part of a board. You're not in charge of it. You're not the only decision maker. You're part of a collective decision-making group of people.
Yeah, Josh.
Yeah, I agree with what Maggie just said, actually. I think people being heard is important. If you're at the grocery store and people stop you and are asking you why certain things are being done, I think the biggest thing is sharing, hey, the people on this board are doing what they believe is best for the students and the staff of our district. I don't think anybody's making decisions that they don't believe are in the best interest. And if I don't agree with something, that's why people vote and why the board is made up of the people that it's made up of. That's what, elections, that's what happens. The board is made up of whoever that is, and it's a board decision. I sit on a lot of boards, and there's some things I don't agree with, and sometimes I vote unanimously because I think that's an important thing, and other times I say, hey, this isn't something I agree with, but this is what the board's doing, and we're going to, we make the decision, and then we make the decision right. Work forward after the decision's made.
Okay, thank you. All right, question number 6. What is your opinion on school vouchers for students choosing to go to private religious schools? What impact do you believe this has on our public schools? Josh, you're first on this one.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this impacts the schools going forward. I think it's our responsibility as a school district to provide the best product. I don't think it's an issue if we're providing a product that people don't feel they need to go somewhere else to receive. The public school system, I'm a product of public school. Our two boys, I had a son graduate last year, and I've got a junior that's here now. And I think there's a lot of unique qualities that are only available in the public school system, but I also understand why some people choose to send their kids to private school. So I think first and foremost, our job is to provide the best experience and provide more than families are able to get from private institutions, and then it's going to be a non-issue. There's a reason that families are looking at going that route, taking their vouchers, doing that. So I think it's our job to be excellent.
Well, I agree that it's our job to be excellent. Within the scope of the question about vouchers, I think that any school that's receiving public funding should be held to the same standards. So if schools are receiving voucher dollars, then I think those standards should apply to both that private school and public schools. I think that school choice is important, and not everyone learns the same way or has the same values. But ultimately, I would not support efforts that wind up diverting funding from public education when we know that public education is already under-resourced, and that diverting that funding can often just drive inequities. You get to a point where the people who can afford to do that are receiving things that the people who cannot don't have a say in.
As a school board member, what components of health and safety do you find most important, and how will you advocate for this ongoing work? Maggie, I think.
Me first. So I've shared my backgrounds in public health. I'm a master certified health education specialist. I think that concerns about health and safety, it's very important to look to the data. Data's a little slow, though, so it's also important to respond in real time. And I think that many health inequities are interconnected. We've certainly seen the impacts of mental health and had to balance those with communicable disease. I also want to just call out that, there's experts in these fields, and I think consulting with and partnering with people who do this for a living is also important. And then I'll also call out, I think I mentioned this last time, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is always kind of in the back of my brain, where you can't be optimized to learn if you're hungry and you're concerned about where you're going to sleep, or you don't feel safe, or your social emotional needs aren't met. So knowing that all of those things are connected, and we have to address those in collaboration and in partnership with other agencies and organizations.
Yeah, I mean, this is a deep issue that requires a lot of research and digging through. Hard to encapsulate a quality answer in a minute on this one. I think the greatest challenge our youth are facing right now is in the area of mental health. Anxiety, depression, isolation, cyberbullying, all sorts of stuff that is destroying our youth. Suicide rates through the roof, depression through the roof, anxiety through the roof. And the schools have these kids for the vast majority of their waking hours, right? I think an area that Holmen could excel in is maybe being on the forefront or finding other people. There's got to be other people that are great at this stuff, but providing programs, whether it's assemblies or different programs that can be really talking about the damage that can be done with devices, screens, young girls and boys taking their identity off of what the world is telling them on Instagram and how many likes they're getting on things. But I think mental health is something we have to get a hold of, and I think we need to be creative in order to do that.
All right, thank you.
All right, how would you commit to learning about the mental health needs of our students? Or is that the one we just did? No.
No.
Sounds, okay, so let me try that
Tie
again.
into what Josh just said.
How would you commit to learning about the mental health needs of our students and advocate for students of support for these students, systems of support for these students? Josh.
Can you give it to me one more time?
Yep, I'd like to do that for myself too. How would you commit to learning about the mental health needs of our students and advocate for systems of support for these students?
Boy, how do you, what's the beginning of it?
How would you commit to learning about the mental health needs of our students and then advocate for systems of support for them?
Yeah, I'd say the people that spend the most time with students may be the most aware of that. Teachers, other faculty. How often do we hear about kids, doing tragic things that everybody thought everything was peachy in their life? So lots of people, you got to be proactive somehow in prying this out of kids. Kids usually don't wear that on their sleeves that they're struggling with things. So that is a very difficult challenge. How would I advocate for them? I think you got to rub shoulders with kids. Whether that's us as board members getting into the schools more. I don't know if that's welcomed or not. I'm sure it would be. I'm sure the school would welcome that. That's a really tough onion to peel apart, Brian. So I don't know. I think just caring and loving people, and just making sure people understand what their identity and worth is, that they're created unique, all those things are important, but that's really hard. It's a big question.
That is a very big question, and I think if anyone had the answer and could describe it in a minute, I would want to hire them. So the first thing I want to say is ask them. I think it's really easy to overlook youth voice in conversations like this. Nothing for them without them. I also think that looking at upstream efforts in partnership with other organizations in the community, that's a big part of what I do in my professional life, looking at social emotional learning, the importance of establishing a trusted adult, having someone they can go to, social connectedness, all of those protective factors that help with resiliency. And then I also think, the question about systems of support is so deep rooted. You can raise awareness about mental health, but if you're aware that you need mental health support and you have a 6-month wait to see a provider, that's a problem. So on the heels of that, I would say also advocacy is really important. So when we do know what those needs are, sharing those with people who can help to affect change in those areas, because it's multiple systems need to come together for that problem.
Yeah, thank you. All right, last question. How do you plan to live the district vision of belong, serve, succeed? For example, supporting a student's gender identity by using the preferred name and pronouns.
Sure. I love this question. I think that belonging is really vital to anyone in education or just in life. I use my pronouns when I introduce myself. It costs me nothing, but it might go a really long way in making someone else feel comfortable. And I think it's important for people to know that they are accepted and valued as a human first and foremost. I don't know if there was a second half to that question, but I think that modeling those behaviors and standing up when there are problems in the community, sometimes the problems begin with adults, and providing training and learning around why people use pronouns, what does it mean, is also really important.
Thank you. Josh?
Can you repeat it one more time?
Yeah. How do you plan to live the district vision of belong, serve, and succeed? And then an example was given, supporting the student's gender identity by using the preferred name and pronouns.
I think we don't love each other enough. It sounds so fluffy and, cliche. So much of this stuff, I think, is common sense and common decency. Social media has completely screwed up the way people communicate with each other. Bullying, whether that is the way somebody doesn't like the way they look, gender identity, whatever community they belong to, the color of their skin, there should be absolutely no tolerance for that ever. If people are using slang terms they shouldn't be using, derogatory terms or swastikas or whatever, if that stuff's condoned or supported in any fashion, there's no place for that. Service is essential. Teaching people, I have 45 seconds, this is tough. Martin Luther King Jr. says, anybody can be great because anyone can serve. That's my favorite quote. It's the signature on my email. If we model service to our community, to our students, to our teachers, that is how you achieve greatness. As far as pronouns go, I don't care what people call me. If somebody wants to be called something, that's how they identify, that's fine. I think to force people to do something that goes against their beliefs is something we have to be careful on. So I guess that's a quick minute.
Okay, that concludes the questions board members have for candidates. Candidates are now allowed 1 minute to provide any follow-up to previous response or something you'd like to add. So this will go to Josh first.
Yeah, yesterday I was at my niece's wedding down in Milwaukee, and I have members of my family that are in just about every race that you can find. Not every race, obviously, but what I see is young kids look at each other, whether they are, and whether they look the same or they don't look the same, that they don't even notice. They're not taught that stuff until they see it modeled in their culture, and they're told that they should be aware of things like that. So a lot of these issues, when we teach people how to treat each other, do not become issues, and we model good behavior as adults. I'm here because 2,200, 2,300 people, I think more people probably voted for me than anybody that sits on our board right now other than Barb. And so I think it would be a outstanding measure by the board to allow those people to have a voice. I think Maggie's a great gal and qualified and brings a lot to the table. I'm here because I think there's a portion of our community that deserves to be heard and have a voice on the board.
All right, thank you. Maggie?
I don't know that I have any, closing comments that I need to elaborate on aside from just coming from a place of gratitude for all of you, for everyone out here, and for all of the folks in the district who aren't here. I think it's been a rough couple of years. I appreciate your work, and thank you for the time tonight.
All right, thank you. Do any of the board members have any follow-up questions for the candidates? Nope. Okay. So at this time, the board will select a candidate. Board members will fill out signed written ballots for the candidate of their choice. So I believe we all have ballots that were in our
Thank you
folders.
so much. Maggie Smith received 3 votes, Josh Newman 2 votes.
Okay, so with 5 members here, we needed 3 votes for the majority. So congratulations to Maggie Smith on receiving the majority of the votes cast and being appointed to the Board of Education. If Maggie accepts this appointment, she will take the oath of office on August 15th, 2022, at our board workshop next Monday. Thank you to all those that applied. Your time, thoughtfulness, and willingness to serve is deeply appreciated. So I would entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All right, Barb has moved and Brian seconded to adjourn the meeting at 6:06 PM. Motion carried. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Motion passes.